Okay, so today is making decisions. Is what we call conditional branching. So we've got this file to work on today, food inspections, .xlsm. That's just some data for us to make some decisions about. So go ahead and download that, and we'll get that up, and we'll get down to business. The data that we have here is, I think this is like, are these all failed food inspections? I don't remember. No, some of these are passed, some of these are failed. But these are food inspections, I think, from 2017 in the city of Chicago. So here was an inspection of a food establishment called the Piccolo Mondo Cafe. Piccolo? I don't know. It's a restaurant. It's a high risk. What makes it a high risk? What makes this particular restaurant a high risk? Any idea? Any of you, involved in food handling and worked at McDonald's ever, whatever? It means they handle foods that can go bad. Almost every restaurant is high risk. If you deal with raw meat, you're high risk, period. There are some things that are like medium risk. Who's this medium risk? Oh, so McDonald's. Why is McDonald's only medium risk? Yeah, I think everything's processed. Everything's cooked by the time it gets there. They're not dealing with raw meat at all. They warm it up. But I'm not sure if that's true or not. But anyway, in their situation, that's what you have. Probably might even be a low risk here somewhere. Medium. Row 61 is here's a low risk, Dollar Tree. So I'm not even sure what they're serving. If they're selling boxed cookies, that's not a food establishment. It has to be like ready to consume. So yeah, I don't know. It's got to be like you walk up, you pay for it, they hand you food that you can eat immediately. So maybe this particular Dollar Tree has got some corner where they're selling ice cream or something. Ice cream would be a low risk food. If you're just selling ice cream, you're low risk. Why? Can ice cream go bad such that it will kill you? Yeah, it really can. But you don't eat it. It has to be warm and runny by the time it's ready to kill you. And people won't eat it. So, okay. So there's various other things here. So here's the idea for today. What we'd like to do today is be able to say, let's create some kind of interface here that will allow us to essentially highlight some different things. It's almost like conditional highlighting, but a little more sophisticated. So let's start off by creating a module. So Alt F11. And I guess what I'd like to do first is I would like to just be able to go through and somehow color these rows based on which ones of these are high risk. So a different color for high risk versus low risk versus medium risk. Maybe a different one for when there's no risk. I'm not even sure what that one is, but for some reason there's no data there. So open up, what do we got here? Insert a module. Oh, you may have already a line here that's like an end sub, an errant end sub that's just floating there. You can delete that, or you can just put the sub in front of it. Just means I was working on an example and then I deleted almost all of it before I uploaded it. How to call this the highlight? Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to look at every row and we're going to make decisions about how to highlight them based on whatever it is whatever choice we've made. So we're going to have to iterate across each one of these rows. Let's go ahead and get that going first. So let's dim row as a long integer. Let's start row off at row number 2. So row equals 2. And we will do until, do we have a name for this sheet? It's called, we have 2 sheets? I didn't even notice. Oh, we have 2 sheets. We have food inspections and we have violations. Oh, these are the different kinds of violations. So if you get a violation number, yeah, we're probably going to ignore that sheet. We'll just deal with food inspections. Why don't we go ahead and build a sheet variable to tie onto that. So dim S as a worksheet. Set S equal to worksheets. Which one are we after? Food inspections. You're right, we could just refer to it as sheet 1. So here it says sheet 1, we could refer to it just that way. I don't want to type sheet 1 all the time, so we'll just do S. So do until s dot cells, row, column number 1, dot value is equal to a 0-length string. Put a do events in here. Better increment row. And then just to check to make sure that we're doing everything right, let's go ahead and print whatever we've got there in column 1. I don't even know what column 1 is. What's column 1? It's an inspection number or something. So if we run this, it should just, that would be row, R-O-W, should just print off all those items. And I may actually print off the row as well. So let's print row, comma, those other ones. And it prints off 77 rows. Is that what we think we have? Yep, 77 rows. All right, we'll give you a minute to get caught up and make sure that's working, and then we'll start talking about conditional branching. Any questions while we're going there? Go ahead. Yeah, so the question is, would this be the same? Can we just say set S equal to sheet 1? Would that work just as well? And the answer is yes. So either of these are going to bind onto that worksheet. So what are the pros and cons of these different approaches? The real con here is that this code now is susceptible to being interrupted by the user doing a normal thing. A user saying, no, I don't like that underscore between food and inspections in this tab name. I'm going to change it to a space. And as soon as I change it to a space, this code dies. So, it probably would be better to actually rename this sheet from sheet 1 here, actually select sheet 1 here, and change the name from sheet 1 to food inspections. And then that's something the user is not going to accidentally change or change on purpose. Well, they might come into VBA and start changing things, but if they do that, yeah, they deserve whatever they get. Question here.
Could you just change the name of it to S?
Could we just change it to S here? And yeah, that would work as well. You just name it S. I don't mind for kind of a little loop like here, having S be a really short name. I don't mind having it here just in the code, but I think we're much better off with a descriptive name here. S, in truth, S is probably just as good as sheet 1, but it would probably be better as food inspections as its name here. Okay. So in fact, I will prove that that works. And yeah, behaves just exactly the same. And really, either way is fine. Other questions? Anyone having trouble getting this code to run? If I had said to you today, first thing, write a loop that does this, and I gave you, good description of it, how many of you could have said, yeah, I could have done that? Today I could have done that right here in class. Might have had to look up some other example that could have done it. How many of you are going, wow, I'm not there yet? Okay, so at this point in class, I'm kind of hoping that if you're not there yet, you're feeling like you're pretty close to being there. But something like this is kind of where I'm expecting you to be. So if you're feeling, wow, I'm way far away from that, probably come see me and let's kind of get you headed in the right direction. Okay, so now I may as well go ahead and leave this debug print in here, although it's not really part of the solution. Let's decide what the first coloring that we want to do is. So why don't we just do a coloring based on risk. So we're going to look at column F, and we're going to make high risk look red, medium risk look yellow, and low risk look green. We'll just put a background color onto that cell. So here's where we're going to use the if statement. We've used the if statement a little bit so far, but we really haven't talked about all the ins and outs of it. So let me just kind of put the basic syntax in here. And then, we'll talk about what goes where. So, if then and if. And then everything between the opening of this, the if then line, and the end if, it will execute conditionally depending on whatever we have here. Now, What I want to make sure you get today is that whatever goes there has to evaluate to true or false. So often, especially when we're just starting at this, we'll look at this and we'll say, yeah, that makes sense, or we're doing if this equals something else, but whatever goes there has to be true or false. So let's take a look. Let's say we're looking at s.cells, row number, row, column number, what did I say? Was it E? F? Let's go ahead and put that as an F. If the value of that is equal to something, and risk 1 high, that's what we're looking for. If it says risk 1 high, we just want to make the background red. All right. So here we have a condition. It's true or false. This is either true or false. It's either equal to this or it's not equal. There's no halfway. There can be no other answer than it's either equal to it or it is not equal to it. Now, the tendency is to say, okay, so I have to see if something equals something else here. That's not true. It has to be anything that evaluates to true or false. Hey, do we have a data type that is itself true or false? What's the data type for that? Boolean. So just for kicks, let me just kind of, you don't need to do this. This is just me kind of showing what this would mean. Dim, condition as Boolean. Condition equals true. And now I could replace this whole thing here with just condition. Okay? The condition, so a Boolean variable itself holds a value true or false. And so I've given this a value here, and so I can just drop that right in here. It doesn't need to equal anything as part of the if-then statement. It just has to be true or false. So do you see this? I could even put that condition up here. I can say condition, the Boolean variable condition equals, oh, this looks ugly, doesn't it? Equal. Is that confusing? How does the parser figure this out? How does the interpreter look at this and decide what to do with it? It starts from the left. It comes right over here and it goes condition. What's condition? It looks around. It checks to see if it's any of its built-in words, it's any kind of function or anything, and lo and behold, it finds it right here. Oh, it's a variable. Great, I understand what that is. Condition equals, and it sees condition equals, and it goes, when it sees this equal sign, what does it know? At this point, it goes, aha! I know what I'm doing. What am I doing? Assignment. Yeah, I'm assigning a value into a variable. Because that's, I've got something here that can take a value. I've got an equal sign. Great. Whatever else comes after here has to go in. It has to be evaluated, and then that value goes to this location in memory. So then it gets to here and it goes S. What's S? Oh, I get it. It's a sheet. It's a sheet variable. It's bound onto a sheet. I got it. It has a method called cells. We're expecting some number, some column. I've identified a particular range. Oh, and I've got a property there. I can figure out what that is. And it goes and looks at that cell based on whatever row we have at that point, and it goes, I know the value of that. And now it gets to this equal sign. Now, could I, if all I was doing was executing this, if this is what I was executing by itself, no condition equals with it, is that a valid statement? Is that a legal statement? It is. I'd just be assigning these characters into the value property of that particular cell. And so you might think that's what it's going to try to do here. But because we've already determined that this is an assignment statement here, then this can't be an assignment statement. This has to be just checking for equality. And so we now have a value here. We're saying that it equals this. That expression now it's what we call a condition. It's a Boolean expression. It is itself either true or false. It's either true or it's not true. And so that gets evaluated true or false, and then true or false gets put into the variable. We most often don't do this trick where we say put that into a variable and then just look at the variable. But I want to make sure you understand that whatever we have here, as long as it evaluates to true or false, this is syntactically valid. Your question? No? Okay, well, what are we going to do? Oh, question here.
How would we put, maybe instead of does this equal risk one high, what would we say if it contains the number 1?
Oh, or if it contains high.
Yeah.
So the question is, instead of looking for equality, just look about what if it contains it. Let's put that on the back burner. We'll do it today. But let's just work this example through here. How do you want to do it, folks? Do you want to leave condition as a variable and put condition here? Or do you want to put it back to the more normal way of just putting the checking for equality as a part of the if statement? What do you like? More normal? Oh, I'm disappointed. Not terribly disappointed. I'll comment that out. And maybe I'll comment this out too. And then we'll just start again. All right. So now as we're looking at a particular, whatever our row, our value is for row, we'll be looking at a particular cell. We're checking to see if that's true. So if this condition is true, if it actually equals, if what's in that, if the value of that particular cell equals risk 1 high, what should we do? Let's go ahead and paint the whole row. So let's say, s dot rows, number row. So if I'm looking at cell on row number 5, column number F, then I'm just looking at the whole row number 5. Let's go ahead and say interior dot, Guess you've been working with color index indices in the last 2 homework assignments, one of which is due tonight. Let's go ahead and go to color. Instead of color index, let's use color, and we'll set that equal to VB red. So now if I run this, it should just go down, and all of my high risks should have, the whole row should have a background of red. Let's give it a shot. Wow, it's most of the places. That's a little too red. Oh well. And so as we're going through, we're looking at row number, let's look at row number 7. So when row is 7, then that evaluates to 7. This is row 7, column F. We check to see if its value equals this. This whole thing evaluates to true, so we execute this. Let's loop around. Row will get incremented. We'll come back around. Now row is 8. And we're checking this. Row 8's value equals, or column F row 8's value equals risk 1, true or false? That's false. Row 8 is risk 2. And so what happens? So we immediately jump to the end if. We just skip by that line. That's the whole point. We are trying to skip over a line, and that's what it allows us to do. Question? Interesting. Let me see if I can restate that question while I stall to see if I can figure out an answer. S dot rows. So we get a row index and a column index. That's great. I can't imagine what you could. I don't even think that would work. So let's put row number 2, column number 1. That's got to be syntactically invalid. Dot interior TERIOR dot color equals VB green. I don't know. Let's see. I've never tried this before. I hope it doesn't break Excel. Let's run it. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what you mean by that. And so my guess is that's just an error. But my guess, it seems like a strange error to have, but there's some strange errors. It's just an error in the editor, because this is the editor. Like, this is the text editor here that's saying, oh, you just typed in reference to row. I think I know, what could possibly go here. Maybe with a little more work, we could find out maybe there is some condition where that would work, but I don't know. All right. Now, let's suppose we want to do the same thing for low risk or medium risk. We're going to make medium risk yellow. I'm just going to copy that whole block. We have another if statement. If it's risk 2 medium, then it'll be VB green. We'll stop this, run it again. And now we got our medium one showing up in green. Wonderful. But, so this is just like a, well, let's go ahead and do the next one, which is just to do the, oh no, I wanted this one to be yellow. And then we'll do the next one to be green. So this is risk 3 low. And then we're going to make risk 2 to be yellow. So there's our yellow. There's one with nothing on it, and there's our green. There's a little more as we get down here lower. Starbucks is medium risk. That makes sense. You know, they're not serving hamburger, I don't think, at Starbucks. All right. Now, so at this point, these are independent conditions. So let's look at the idea of an else. So what we can do is we can say, listen, if this thing is true, do one thing. Otherwise, do something different. So let me get rid of these for now. I'm going to bring these back. And let's just look at this one, and we're going to say, listen, we're either going to have red or we're going to have yellow, and that's it. Else, then the row is going to be yellow. So now we've got two different blocks of code. One will execute. It doesn't matter what that first condition is, one of these lines is going to execute. And of course, these can be multiple lines. Let me go ahead and put in here, say this is s dot rows row dot font dot color equals VB yellow. And I guess if it's yellow, we're going to want the font to be black. Black is 0, that's easier. So now the whole thing to realize here is that we look at this condition. If it evaluates to true, we do this block. As soon as we hit the else, we're done. We drop to the end if and keep going. If this is false, we skip to the else, execute this block, and then it's done. So if I run this, I should get every line showing as either red background with yellow letters or yellow background with black letters. As I look at this, an if then else statement, when I come into this, one of those blocks has to execute. Now, is it possible that two of the blocks that they would both execute? And the answer is no. They are mutually exclusive. There's no way to get it to go. You might be able to do something really, really, really weird, but it would be really weird. Let's just stick with that. There's no way to they are mutually exclusive, period. All right, let's bring back, go ahead. Yeah, the question is, hey, this is going to highlight something that's blank. That's exactly right. Because what we're doing is we're checking to see, listen, is this risk high? If it is, make it red. Otherwise, we don't care what it is. Make it yellow. That's exactly right. Now, what you may be saying is we don't want that. And so let's go ahead and come back to what we had here before. We have these other if statements. Now, right now, is it possible for this one to execute, for this block to execute, and for this block to execute? Knowing nothing about what code is here, saying, well, you could put put whatever code you want here. Would it be possible for this one to evaluate to be true and for this one to evaluate to be true? What has to happen? Yeah, if I change the value, if right here I change the value, then this one could execute too. If I said, oh, I'm going to set it to medium, risk 2 medium, then by the time we get to this one, that will be risk 2 medium, and then we'll both execute. So that's the thing. First thing to realize is that if I have several independent if statements, they all get evaluated. It is possible that every single one of them will execute. Now, if I say, listen, I've got several if statements that I want to check, but I only want one of them in this whole block to execute, that's a different structure. And that's what we do here. So in addition to else, we can come here and we can say else if. Let's go ahead and bring the if in here. Else if is one word. I'll do the same thing with this one. Let's see, I guess for yellow, for green, I want those all to be black as well. Green I probably want, maybe green I want white font. I hope VB white is one of those predefined variables, predefined constants. And I want black for yellow. So when I have multiple else-if clauses in an if structure, then here's how it executes. We start here. We look at this one first. That's either true or false. If it's true, what do? We execute these 2 lines. As soon as we hit that else-if, we don't even look at the condition. There's no reason to look at that condition because these blocks are mutually exclusive. As soon as I find the one that executes, I drop to the end if and I'm done. If this one's false, we go to the next else-if and we check to see if this condition's true. If that's false, we drop to the next else if. We check to see if that one's true. What happens if that one's false? We drop to the else. There's no condition here. We execute whatever's in the else. And so when we have this else condition here, then I've got these 4 separate blocks of code. One of those is going to execute. If none of the 3 conditions evaluate to true, the last block executes. Well, what if I say, you know what? I want only these 3 to execute, otherwise I don't want to do anything. What do? Yeah, just no else clause. We'll leave the else clause out and that works as well. So in this case, I think we want the background color to be XL none. I don't think it's the color none. I think we have to say color index for that to work. And that will set it back to blank, even though right now it's red on the one that doesn't have anything because we had an example that made them all either red or yellow. Color, setting it to XL none worked. Oh, interesting. All right, I'll go ahead and run this. And we should have, there's my blank one. So that's gone back to white. My other colors are here. Those colors could use some help. Anyway, there we go. So that's the if, else if structure. Questions here? The thing to realize here is that all of these conditions are completely independent from each other. So in this case, we're always looking at the value of what's here in cell F, in the current row in column F. That's built in. In fact, if that's what we've built, there's actually a structure that's better for us to use than else if. So else if is best when we say, you know what, these different conditions aren't even looking at the same thing. They're totally different. If the value is risk 1 is high, then do something. If the background of the current row in column B is something else, then we want to do this. So if they're completely different, that's fine. They're totally independent from each other. But what if we have, what's the better use for this structure? Well, the better structure for this one, why don't we do a different example for this one? So why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and set ourselves up here so we can kind of clear this thing off. Let's do this. I am going to give myself a little more room, and we'll give a drop-down box up here. So let me insert, come to my developer tab, insert a combo box. I'll give myself a few different options in here. I'm not sure if I can just type them in here as I can if we're doing, oh yeah, why don't we do the other one? Let's do this. Let's do the, we talked about two different ways to do this. I'm going to insert for myself a new row here. Select that whole row, Control plus. And we're just going to use data validation. I'll do it right here in column B. Column B is kind of wide. That looks great. So I've got a blank row here on column 1. And I'm going to put some data validation in here. So I'm going to come to my data tab. I'm going to come to data validation. And instead of any value, I'm going to put in here a list. And now I want to type this list in. I'm not sure I remember the syntax for this. Is it just a comma-separated list? Let's do clear, and let's do risk for now. So now we'll drop down. That's not right. Does it have to be in braces? Oh, I put a period instead of a comma. Let me darken that in for you. Kind of hard to see from back there. Comma. There we go. All right. And then let's go ahead and give ourselves a button to do the highlighting. So on my developer tab, I'm going to come and insert a button. And we'll select our highlight macro, and I'll label it highlight. Okay. So now we want this code to behave differently depending on what's in B1. So if it says clear in B1, we want to reset it back to black, to no background black letters. Otherwise, if it says, what is it, risk, we want to do what it's currently doing. Question? Yes, how do we do the text validation or the data validation? Here's how we do it. We come over here to the data tab, choose the cell we want to put the drop-down list on. We come to the data tab, and there's a section, there's a group called data tools. And in data tools, we come to this thing called data validation. We just go ahead and click on that button. And it says, great, what kind of values do you want to allow in here? And I want to choose this from a list. So instead of any value, I'm going to put list. And then I'm just going to put the various things I want to check in here. And then that's the list to choose. So now this can only be one of those two values. Presumably it can be blank as well, so we can probably delete that value out. It's going to be one of those. If it has a value, it'll be one of those two values. Okay. So now let's go ahead and modify that code so that it first checks to see what we have in B1. So back to my code. We're going to be looping across all of these rows no matter what we do. So why don't I go ahead and put that if right in here. So here I'm going to say if s.range b1 dot value is equal to, and actually in this case, this is when we are going to be looking, O is at B1. We've got several things to check. We're looking at B1, so let's use a different structure. So instead of the if statement altogether, I'm going to use the select case statement. Select case, and then I put half of the expression that I'm trying to evaluate. I put here, I'm going to say, all right, now look here at B1. I'll put end select at the end. Now I'm going to check to see what does this equal. So case, if it equals clear, I want to do something. Right now, let me just put a couple of lines in here. So debug.print. Here we are clearing the data. And I can have as many of these options as I want. So we're going to have clear, what's the other one called? Risk. And we'll say highlight risk. And then I'll put a case else, something else. So right now, when we run this subprocedure, we're going to check this structure first, and we will print either clear the data, highlight risk, or something else, and then we're going to highlight risk. We're going to integrate these examples, but they're not integrated yet. They're totally separate examples right now. So what do I have on right now? So right now, it's set for clear, and so I'll run this. I'm going to put a stop right here, so that when I run this, it runs only to there. And it has printed clear the data. In fact, I may go ahead and step through this. So I'll just F8 through this, checking to see if it's clear. It is clear, so it drops into here. And then after it's done executing that line, it drops to the end select, and we're out. It doesn't even look at the other conditions. They are mutually exclusive blocks. The difference between the select case structure and the if then else if structure is that all of these conditions are tied back to a single value that we're looking at. And so this structure says, there's two things that are nice about this structure. One, it says to my, hey, all of these conditions are looking back to a single value. I'm looking back here, and then I'm doing something different based on what that value is. The other thing that's nice about it is there's less syntax around it. There's no then, there's no, it's just less wordy than the if, else if is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my whole if structure here. I'm going to put that as part of my case. So I'm cutting out that whole block that does the coloration. And that's for risk. So instead of debug.print risk, I'm going to have this whole if statement in here. Now I'm going to tab that in so that as I'm looking at my if structure, looking at my case structure, my select structure, I can see select, then here's my different cases. I can go right from this case and go straight down to the next case, and I know that's everything that's in here. So now this is probably the most complex code that we've written so far in terms of nesting. The human processor can handle 2 levels of nesting like this pretty easily. We've got some if statement over here and then some other if statement down in here. We get two levels. We get to 3 levels of nesting. We get iffy. As soon as we get to like 4 levels of nesting with conditional structures, it gets really tough for us to keep track of what's going on. So that's when it becomes absolutely critical that you've got your if statements all tabbed in so your structure is nice and readable. Otherwise, it will really be a nightmare. All right, so what are we going to do if we're clearing the data? Well, clearing the data is just exactly what we have in our very last else clause here. So I'm just going to copy those lines, and I'm going to bring them up here to clear. So it says clear. We're just going to set everything back to white with a black font. If it says risk, we're going to do this. If it's anything else, we're not doing anything yet. So I should be able to come back to my code, and if it's on clear and I hit highlight, I need to get off that breakpoint. So let me stop my code, and I've got a breakpoint here I need to get rid of. Clear should clear the data. Oh, and we're actually now starting at row number 3 instead of row number 2. So let me go ahead and make that change in my code as well. So row should start at 3. Otherwise, it just means you're going to color that header row, which you don't really want to do. We should be able to change this now to risk. Highlight again, and it should go back to the highlighting that we had before. All right, let's pause right here and make sure that you've got this code running. So let's take a look. What's next? We want to have another condition here. And case else, what else do I want to teach you guys? Conditional branching. So let's do something that deals with ranges. Let's do something that uses the select case. By the way, these are the two main ways that we do conditional branching. The if statement with its variations. Well, there's one more variation that I want to show you. And then the select case statement. That's it. It's not like there's a lot more of the ways that we can branch with code. These are the two ways that we do it. But there's a little more sophistication on the case. So let's take a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this off because looking at red and yellow is making me feel a little uncomfortable. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at the latitude. So over here on the latitude, this is telling me where are these things in Chicago. Latitude and longitude. And what I would like to do is I would just like to give some sense of how far north or south we are. So we're above the equator, so the higher the latitude is, the further north it is. What's our minimum and maximum here? I'd just kind of like to maybe get 5 levels here and have it give me a different color based on the latitude. So let's ask for the minimum. Minimum is 41.7. Our maximum, that'll be a circular reference. I hope that doesn't cause me a problem. Yeah. Our maximum, so we got 41.7 to 42. So we're really looking at, wow, that's not very far. So 0.7, yeah, we got 0.3 to work with. So that should be okay. So let's go ahead and add ourselves a new choice in our data validation. So I'll come edit this, and I'll add a new one here called how far north you are. I guess just call it latitude. Right, so now we should be able to choose latitude here, and we would like it now to do something based on, we'd like to be able to do it, look at the latitude. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself another case. So here's my select case. Got case clear, case risk, I've got case else. Actually, let me just change this case else. I don't really think I need a case else here. So let me change the case else to latitude. Now I'm going to put another select case inside in this block of the code right here. So select, end select. Select case, and now I'm looking at that latitude column. And so, what column is latitude? Anyone know? N? Yep, N, very good. Select case, so select case, I'm looking at the value there. Now here's the trouble. I've only got, maybe I want, 4 or 5 different values in here. But I've got, I may not have any 2 that have the same latitude. They're really precise. And so, fortunately, my case allows me to do this. I can say case is less than, and then I put the number that I'm interested in. So why don't we say, what was it, 41? 41.75. If it's less than 41.75, I'm going to do something. What are we going to do? We're going to make the background color equal to, and let's just do shades of gray. Now, shades of gray are kind of easy to work with. As it turns out, we've got 16 million, more than 16 million colors to work with. But there's a function called RGB. I can give it an amount of red. So why don't we say 40 red? Why don't we say 200 green and 255 of blue? And that will give me back a number that matches to the number in Excel's coloring system, that is that much red, that much green, that much blue, and that'll be the color. Well, what's interesting about shades of gray? They're the same. They're the same amount of red, same amount of green, same amount of blue. And so if I give 0, 0, 0, that's black. If I give 255, 255, 255, that's white. Anything else, if they're all the same number, it's going to be some shade of gray. And so I can come in here, and so for this, I'd like it to be kind of a light gray. Let's see, this is going to be, this is low. If it's less than that number, that's my low end. Then, so I'll want this to be, why don't we put this kind of close to white? Oh yeah, that's the font, thank you. Let's make the color for this one black. Oh, I'm still in the wrong spot, thank you. Here's where I want to be. Interior.color is equal to RGB. I want this to be pretty close to white, but not white. So let's try 200. 200, comma, 200, comma, 200. And so if 255, 255, 255, that's pure white. 0, 0, 0 is pure black. And so, if that's the case, we'll want this to be a black background. So let's go ahead and set the font color equal to 0. Let me just go ahead and see if that one, if that works so far. So we've already cleared. I'm going to change this to latitude. And I'll run. It looks like that's given me some gray. So that should be less than 41.7. For 41.75 is where I set the cutoff at. Okay. So now, what do I have? What should I put here to do the next one? Should be a little bit darker gray. Let's not worry about the condition on the case. Let's go ahead and darken it up a little bit. I want to do this about 5 times, so why don't we go down to 150? Probably font color black is still good for this. But now, what do I have to put here? Okay, so the comment is, this structure is fine, just needs to be a bigger less than. Okay, so let's go to, we're trying to get to 42.3. So here, why don't we go to 41.7, 41. Let's do 0.8. 2.82. Now, aren't all of these less than 41.82 as well? Now, anything that we would have branched into here, that's also less than 41.82. Is that a problem? No, why not? It's mutually exclusive. So if I find this one, then we color that and we're done. Now, in this case, the ordering is important, yeah? Because if I reverse these two, then I would never get to these because I'd say, is it less than 41.82? Yeah. And then, but I wanted to have a different color for ones that are even less than 41.75, but I'd never hit those. So now I've got to think about the sequencing here as well. So I should be able to run this, and that should give me a separate color banding for the ones that are a little bit further north. I might be moving too fast on my grayscale. Let's do another one. Let's just come up now to 42.5. Let's go down to 100. Let's change the font color now to white. We'll do 42.3. And then we'll do a case else, and we'll put it down to 50. So we may not have them split as evenly as I would have liked to, but that should give us then a different color depending on how far north these are. And we could play around with those numbers to get things split up a little more evenly, but that's where we want to go. Questions here? In the back? Did I have to add latitude to the list of drop-down items? And the answer is yes. And in fact, I did it, I guess, when you weren't looking. So come here and we can see that my latitude is in there already. How did I get there? I came over here to data validation and just added it onto the list right here. All right, there's one more thing that I'd like to do. Probably more interesting to see the code than it is to see my solution. So the one more thing to do here is to look at complex conditions. So we typically don't have conditions in select case because we have some variable that we're looking at and we're comparing that to some numbers, and so they can be we can do kind of more complex things here, but where we normally see complex conditions is in the if statement. So let's take a look and say, well, let me go ahead and clear this off. So let's go back to clear. And let's say I want to find high risk failures. So see, do we have a failure? Where does it say if it failed or not? Oh, results. So pass, fail. Okay. So I don't want to just look at the results. I want to see high risk failures because those are the ones that are most concerning to me. You failed your inspection and you're dealing with some kind of food that can kill somebody. So we want to look at those. So let's go ahead and add that in as a choice in our dropdown. So data validation, high risk failures. And we'll add another case for this. Oh, I got HIG risk failures. Okay. So now that I've got so much code happening here that I can't really see this whole structure on the screen at once, probably makes sense for me to kind of annotate what my end selects are. So this end select, I'm just going to put a comment here that this is the end select for how far north. And this one is my drop-down control. All right, so before I get to my end select here, I'm going to come here and put another case. So case, high-risk failures. So now we're going to want to paint these into a particular color if they're high-risk failures. If, now we're looking at our high risk. So we already have high risk in here. So if the risk is high, then end if. There's a couple of ways for us to kind of do this composite condition. One way is this, with a nested if statement. We could say if the risk is high, we'll only come into this block, and then we could say if it's a failure. What column is failure? M. And is it just failure? Fail. So now we say, listen, if we pass the first check, then we come in and look at the second check. If we pass the second check, then here's where we want to do our condition. So what do we want to do? I'm not sure what we should do then. Why don't we go ahead and make the color of the beast, 666. Let's make the font bold. And let's make the font color white. And if we wanted another, we could keep nesting these if we wanted, this kind of complex condition. It has to meet all of these. I'll go ahead and run that. I still have high risk failures? I don't think so. I think I changed it. So high risk failure. There we go. And I'll run that. Oops. Font dot color. And so now I'm seeing just the failures that happened in high risk items. There's a different way, and there's a more powerful way to do this complex condition. And that is, I can have, if I just say print true, then that's true. But I can say print true and false. What is that going to print? Will this print true and false? No. It's going to print this expression. So what is true and false? Yeah, true and false is false. You probably learned this like in pre-calculus or something, I don't know, pre-algebra. You did truth tables, true and true, true or false, that kind of thing. It's all right here. So true and false is itself false. False and false is false, and so forth. But let's go true or false. What is that? That's true. How about true or true? What's that? That's true. It turns out there's another one here called exclusive or. True XOR true. What do you think? This is an exclusive or. This is false. Yeah, an exclusive or will only return true if one is true and one is false. It doesn't matter which one's true and which one's false, but as long as one's true and one's false, exclusive or will return true. But I can use those now to join these conditions. So instead of having this as a nested if statement, I can take this second condition and make it just one if statement by just coming here and putting and putting that other condition right here. And so that will run exactly the same. I could say, listen, the ones I'm interested in, what else would be interesting here? If it's a high-risk failure and it's north of something, I don't know. So it's a high-risk failure, I add another and in here. And my latitude, which is n, is greater than 42.2. So now I only have high-risk failures that are in the north part of the city. Question here?
So when I'm trying to
so we've got bold on here. So the question is, when I clear, my bold text is still staying bold. Yeah, watch this. Let's go ahead and go back and do what you're saying. It's not a problem with your code. That's the way we've written it. So yeah, those ones that were before bold, why are they staying bold? Yeah, because our clear algorithm only changes the color of the font and the color of the background. If you want them to go off of bold, and you probably do, and you just set the bold property to false for that one. Folks, I could wrap all of this up in parentheses, and I could say, well, all of those or something else. Or it's pass. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But that will now highlight ones the same. Oops, I'm on clear still. I need to put this back to my high-risk failures. So some of these are passes, and they're ending up here because they're pass. Doesn't matter, because all those other conditions, it's got to be a, what did we say it was? High-risk failure. Or if it's a pass, we're highlighting. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but the point is that you can make these conditions as complex as you want. And this is the number one place that logic errors happen in code. If you have code that's running out there in production and there's a mistake in it, that's the most likely place for it to be. You've got some complex condition and you just haven't really understood it correctly. So I'm going to do this. It's almost impossible to see those. So I'm going to use line continuation characters to bring these down. So here's my or, my and. I may, anyway, at least break them on so you can see it all on one screen. You may want to put each condition on its own line, but using that line continuation character, you can see it. Question here? Oh. It's an underscore, but it has to be preceded by a space, is the line continuation character. So technically it's space underscore, and it can't be inside of a string. If that's in the middle of a string, it won't know what to do with it, so it's got to be kind of in the interstitial fluid of the code. It'll be between terms. All right, folks, that's conditional branching. Questions? I know it's gripping stuff. Class dismissed.